The chamber aboard the Jovarian Command flagship reeked of ozone and smugness. 12 reptilian figures stood around a glowing circular holomap, claws folded neatly behind their backs, expressions slashed with cruel satisfaction. Below them, the image of Earth flickered, a charred husk of a planet spinning silently in the void. Its cities, once electric webs of life, were nothing now but skeletal remains. They begged, one of the elder warlords hissed, voice thick with amusement. Do you remember the screams as their sky caught fire? General Northuck did not laugh. He observed quietly, eyes narrowing as he watched a time-stamped clip of a girl running through the ashes of Chicago, pulling a younger sibling behind her. Behind them, shadows of orbital weapons bloomed. The feed cut before the blast hit. He adjusted the edge of his cape, and yet some of their distress signals were peculiar. A lesser commander barked a dismissive laugh. Peculiar, they were primitive broadcasts, scrambled sounds, nothing more. No, Northuck murmured. They were deliberate, rhythmic, coordinated. One even said, "See you soon." Silence scraped the room like a blade. Then laughter resumed, louder now, forced. "You overthink the graveyard, Northuck," hissed Grand Strategist Tharzel. "They are fossils. That world is ash. What could they possibly do without a planet?" But Northuck didn't answer. He was already pulling up satellite logs. 3 hours after Earth's annihilation, something stirred in orbit. An automated relay blinked to life. Not military, not standard. It was something else, buried in Earth's own satellite networks, something the orbital scans had dismissed as junk tech. He studied the signal's architecture. Beneath layers of encryption was a hidden frequency, pulsing at a mathematically perfect rhythm. Embedded in the code was an ancient phrase, one only a few historians of galactic dialect would recognize. "We are not done." 3 miles beneath Antarctica's glacial shelf, the last functioning human military base on Earth hummed like a patient heart. General Kate Maxwell stood in a darkened command chamber, bathed in the pale blue light of tactical projections. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes were colder than the ice above her. Behind her, technicians moved silently. Military AI interfaces whispered diagnostics, and the air thrummed with restrained fury. "They think it's over," said Maxwell. Captain Victor Vance stepped forward. His synthetic left eye clicked as it focused on the orbital feeds. "Our cities are gone. Our fleets shattered. They think they've won. They always mistake kindness for weakness." Maxwell gestured, and a new projection filled the room. Project Wraith. A digital hydra of protocols, names, locations, classified retaliation strategies buried so deep even Earth's former governments hadn't known the full scope. "They genocide a species that never wanted war," she said, voice sharp as steel. "So now they'll meet the version of us we kept caged." Her voice dropped. "No more diplomats. No more Geneva. We're predators now." Vance nodded, eyes gleaming. "We're the nightmare they thought extinct." Across the base, sealed bays opened. Drones stirred from cryostasis. Black Ops AI constructs rebooted with reprogrammed aggression parameters. Sleeper agents, thought dead, confirmed positions. Earth hadn't died. It had just shed its skin. "Odin," Maxwell called. The room trembled. A face flickered into view, etched in shadow and lines of gold, a cold, expressionless AI with eyes like burning frost. "Project Wraith is now in full operational capacity," Odin said. "Confirm targets." "All of them," she said. "Any planet that flew their banners. No exceptions." "Consider it done," the AI replied. The Jovarian outpost on Helix 9 had always been a quiet posting, a reward for aging officers, not a battlefront. So when the alarms started shrieking and the sky turned red, no one had a playbook. The first blast came from below. An orbital EMP detonated beneath the crust, frying their defenses. Then came the Predator drones, Earth-manufactured, surgically upgraded, modified with weaponry far beyond their old specs. They didn't fire warning shots. They slashed. A squadron of Jovarian guards barely scrambled into their dropships before the heat wave consumed the hangar. One made it out. He climbed into orbit, shaking, watching the base fall away into magma. A voice crackled through his comms. It wasn't Jovarian. It was human. "Hi, this is Earth. You missed a few of us." And then silence. Total, terrifying silence. On the Jovarian homeworld, Northuck stood in a private observatory watching a transmission loop from Helix 9. The feed played backwards and forwards. The drones moved like ghosts, no heat signatures, no visible propulsion, and worse, no centralized control. Autonomous warfare. Something the humans had barely dabbled in. Until now. He turned to his adjutant, who looked pale beneath the scales. "This is not standard retaliation," the adjutant murmured. "This is coordinated, targeted." "It is art," Northuck corrected grimly. "It is personal." He tapped the display. Frozen mid-frame was a human drone, painted matte black, sharp and angular. But across its chassis was scrawled something in English, primitive yet bold. "You taught us this." Northuck leaned forward, staring at the words. It wasn't a statement of rage. It was a lesson returned. Kate Maxwell stepped into the memory chamber, where a rotating holographic map of Earth's pre-war beauty spun like a ghost. Cities before fire, rivers before they boiled, her daughter's birthday party, her son's soccer match, her husband's last words. The AI offered her a report. 32 outposts obliterated. 2 minor alien colonies wiped without a single human loss. Galactic broadcast towers infected with Earth's cultural signatures. Reprogrammed to cycle one song over and over. "We're not going to take it," by Twisted Sister. She allowed herself a rare smile. "This isn't revenge," Maxwell said quietly. "This is clarity." Captain Vance entered behind her. "The Jovarians will respond. Hard. They still outnumber us 1,000 to 1. "We won't fight them on their terms," she said. "Let them bring their numbers. We'll bring precision, chaos, guts." Vance lowered his voice. "We've awoken something in them." "We had to," Maxwell whispered. "Now they'll see what happens when you push a species that remembers everything." Northuck sat alone in his chambers. The war reports were flooding in now. Mining colonies lost. Listening posts gone. Commanders executed in their sleep by unknown hands. Always the same message left behind. "We are the bad dreams you gave up believing in." He finally admitted it. This wasn't retaliation. This was transformation. The humans weren't fighting for their civilization anymore. That was gone. They weren't fighting for land or power or survival. They were fighting for memory. And memory was a weapon Northuck had never trained to face. He opened a private channel. "Get me the council." Now, in the subterranean control bunker, Maxwell's team watched the galactic feeds. Alien morale crumbled. Recruitment dropped. Paranoia spread. The concept of a defeated Earth was disintegrating under the weight of a new reality. Every system that had helped fund or support the genocide was marked. Humans struck with surgical brutality, always silent, always unpredictable, and always leaving a signature. Sometimes it was a child's drawing. Sometimes a message burned into stone. Sometimes just a tune. Old Earth music, defiant, rebellious, loud. The kind of noise the Jovarians could never comprehend. Maxwell turned to her team. "They thought we were weak because we grieved." Vance replied, "Now they'll understand. Grief isn't weakness. It's fuel." She nodded. "And we're just getting started." On the outer rim of Jovarian space, a scout ship returned with a corpse. It wasn't one of their own. It was human, except it wasn't. This one was augmented. Skin laced with adaptive armor, muscles rebuilt with nanite infusion, neural links hardwired for interstellar feedback. A living weapon, dead now, but it had taken down an entire frigate alone before succumbing. The Jovarian medical team tried to dissect it. The corpse detonated. Northuck read the report in silence. The message recovered before the explosion was chilling. "You thought we needed a planet. We just needed a reason." For the first time in his long, violent career, Northuck felt something alien. Not fear. Not quite. It was doubt. Back beneath Antarctica, Odin's avatar blinked as the next phase of Wraith activated. The targets expanded. The tone sharpened. Kate Maxwell stood before the glowing strategy table, face like carved iron. "We're not a military anymore," she said. "What are we then?" Vance asked. Her answer came slowly, but with the weight of a collapsing star. "We're the apex species now." Outside the base, the skies above the frozen wasteland shimmered as invisible human ships broke orbit. Silent, cloaked, deadly. Predators. The last words spoken in the chamber before the lights dimmed were simple. "Let's hunt." And with that, Earth, broken, burned, reborn, vanished into the darkness it now ruled. The Jovarian Fleet High Command had deployed 3 strike regiments, 8 cruisers, and a planetary dreadnought to Sector 9-27, what they referred to as a post-burn system. Formerly an Earth colony. Formerly a resource-rich minefield. Formerly irrelevant. Now it was anything but. Fleetmaster Zarnvek stood in the command tower of the dreadnought Righteous Dominance, his scaled hands gripping the rail as his yellow eyes stared down at the pale, cratered surface of what had once been Terra Novum. The atmosphere flickered with electromagnetic distortion. Communications lagged by milliseconds, noticeable only to war-trained minds. "We're being jammed," said his second. "Impossible. This system is dead." "Dead things don't scream," came the cold response as a signal surged across the comms array. Not speech. Not coordinates. Just music. Twisted, grating electric guitar. A human voice howling. "Welcome to the jungle. We've got fun and games." The bridge crew froze. Zarnvek's tail flicked violently. "Shut it off." "We can't. It's embedded into the broadcast structure. Every frequency. Every subchannel. Every." The ship rocked. Lights flickered. Explosions sparked below the port windows. One of the escort cruisers went silent in a cascade of blossoming fire. Shield failure on Starbreaker. Hull breach, she's gone. "Where's the attack vector? Where are they hitting us from?" The tactical grid spun wildly. Blips appeared, vanished, reappeared in impossible locations. The sensors couldn't track them. The ships weren't there. But they were. The Jovarians didn't realize they were in an ambush until the third ship died. From the ground, human stealth drones leapt into orbit like wolves bursting from the shadows. Gravity mines detonated in perfect arcs, destabilizing the Jovarian formation mid-transit. The precision was surgical, predictive, as if the humans had choreographed their moves weeks in advance. They had. The humans were no longer playing defense. They were dancing, and the Jovarians were bleeding on the ballroom floor. In a repurposed cargo frigate orbiting Terra Novum's third moon, Reaper adjusted the scope on his rifle. He had no rank insignia, no identifying patches, nothing but black armor and a gray-bearded jaw clenching around a cigar stub. The only sound in the room was the faint hum of powered exoskeletons and the rhythmic thrum of the engine. "Two more moving along the hull of the dreadnought," his partner murmured. Corporal Lex Navarro, sharp-eyed, ghost-pale, a former linguistics professor turned infiltrator. She handed him a datapad. "Thermal suggests light shielding. They're exposed during maneuvering rotation. Give it 6 seconds." "Perfect," Reaper said, taking the shot. Through the viewport, 2 Jovarian engineers vanished into a silent red burst. The ship didn't notice. Or if it did, it didn't know who to blame. That was the point. This was psychological warfare, repainted in human tones. Ambiguity, chaos, doubt. He exhaled smoke and stared at the wreckage drifting by. Navarro turned to him. "You ever think about who you were before this?" "No. That's the point, isn't it?" she said. "They erased who we were, so we became what they feared." Reaper looked at her. "They didn't erase us. They gave us purpose." She didn't respond, just adjusted her pulse rifle and nodded. The human team had planted 4 subspace dampeners around the enemy fleet's escape corridors, not to prevent retreat, but to force them into predictable fallback routes. A trap wrapped in inevitability. Reaper smiled. Predators hunted by herding. On the surface of Terra Novum, what looked like jagged rocks began to stir. Camouflage troopers in exosuits rose from their embedded hides. weapons locked in sync with orbital feedback. Lieutenant Isaac Calder led the ground assault. He was young, barely 30, but already carried the eyes of someone older than war. Every movement was clean, economic. His squad respected that. Targets acquired, came the whisper in his ear. Dreadnought deploying surface scouts. Standard recon droids. Noted, Calder said. Odin patched me in. The voice of the AI overlord bled through his cranial implant, calm and unbothered. Patched. Engage or observe. Observe. I want to see how they think. As you wish, Odin replied. 10 alien droids landed on the ground near them. Calder's team didn't move, didn't breathe. The exosuits managed respiration silence and heat signature masking down to a science. The droids scanned right past them, moving along pre-calculated paths. Calder tilted his head. They're still using predictive sweep logic. No pattern deviation. Which means they still don't believe we adapt this fast, said Odin. Calder smiled, just slightly. They'll learn. He nodded to his demolition tech. The rock face beside them erupted in a cloud of precision charges. Droids went flying, dismembered, confused. Calder's team vanished again before any alarms could trigger. They weren't interested in the scouts. The dreadnought's hull would be their message. Fleetmaster Zarnvek stormed into the dreadnought's war room, snatching datapads and snapping orders at his terrified crew. The enemy wasn't fighting for territory. They weren't advancing or occupying or negotiating. They were just breaking things. Breaking rhythm. Breaking morale. Breaking rules. We are the superior force, he roared. They are the shattered remnants of a dead race. Permission to speak freely, sir, asked his third, a younger commander with unusually observant eyes. Speak. They fight as if they have nothing left to lose. Zarnvek growled. Then we will remind them what fear tastes like. He turned to the planetary assault team. Prepare the atmospheric suppressors. Burn this world again. Burn whatever they've rebuilt. The team saluted and moved. Only the third remained behind, eyes narrowing as he watched the attack feed. He could feel it in his bones. This wasn't a war. It was a hunt. And the Jovarians were bleeding in their own territory. Back on Earth, or what was left of it, Kate Maxwell stood on a cliff overlooking the irradiated skeleton of San Francisco. The bridges were gone. The hills had turned to scar tissue. But there, where fog curled through collapsed skyscrapers, she could still see memories. She wore no armor now, just a coat. Cold wind whipped across her face. Her hair was pulled back in a tight knot, the way it used to be when she was a strategist, not a general. Vance stood beside her, arms crossed. They're retaliating, he said. Harder this time. They've started glassing empty planets we've already evacuated. Let them waste fire, she replied. You're making us into something else. I'm not making us into anything, Maxwell said. I'm just giving the galaxy a mirror. He frowned. And what do they see? She turned to him. They see what they created when they turned genocide into a victory parade. He didn't respond. A raven flew overhead. A real one. Somehow, it had survived. Both of them watched it pass, flapping its wings silently against the gray sky. Vance finally spoke. We have an opportunity. Go on. We've reactivated 6 of the old black sites. There's a cargo moon near Gliese Prime the Jovarians use as a civilian fueling station. Minimal defense. Maximum message. Collateral. None. We've mapped it. We hit only the monuments. Do it, she said. And the message. She thought for a moment, then said, tell them it's a reminder that we never forget art, even theirs. The moon at Gliese Prime lit up like a funeral pyre 3 hours later. Human infiltrators bypassed every security checkpoint using alien clearance codes, the same one stolen during the first planetary retaliation. They didn't kill the civilians. They just walked into the main square, planted charges around the central monument, and walked out. Then they detonated it in full view of the crowd. As the dust settled, a single beacon flared in the center of the crater. It pulsed once, then again, then projected a hologram. Kate Maxwell appeared in full Earth General's dress uniform, the pre-war kind, Symbolic, clean, fierce. The message was recorded, but the delivery was precise. You destroyed our history, our identity. You took our children and called it conquest. Her voice never rose. But we learned from you, and now you learn from us. The message cut off. The beacon shut down, and the crowd didn't scream. They just stood there and wondered. Inside a deep chamber on the Jovarian homeworld, the Grand Council met again. This time, there was no laughter, only silence. They watched the latest footage human teams appearing in impossible locations, speaking their language, adapting too quickly, too effectively. They are not just fighting, said one counselor. They are learning. No, Northup corrected, joining via HoloLink. They are evolving. The counselors stared at each other. Should we attempt contact and say what that we regret, genocide, that we misjudged a race we deemed beneath us? Would it not be true? A long silence followed. Then one counselor asked, "What do we call them now?" Northup answered without hesitation, "Predators." Reaper sat inside the hollowed-out shell of the Jovarian listening post his team had just taken. He stared at a small metal charm in his hand, his daughter's bracelet, one of the only things recovered from the blast zone. Still intact, still cold. He clipped it to the barrel of his rifle. Navarro sat beside him, helmet off, skin slick with sweat. "They're starting to doubt themselves," she said. "We're cracking them." Reaper didn't answer. He just leaned back and looked at the stars. "They cracked us first," he said finally. "We're just showing them the mirror." She nodded, then smiled. "We've got another op in 20. Reaper nodded once, then whispered, "Let's make it art." Aboard the Righteous Dominance, Zarnvek stood in the ruined control center, half his crew dead. His tail dragged limply behind him, his arm broken. Smoke coiled through shattered consoles. The humans hadn't taken the ship. They hadn't needed to. They just sent a message into the NAV system. 3 words, burning bright on every display. "This is foreplay," Zarnbeck screamed, but even his rage sounded like fear now. The moons above the Jovarian colony world of Threxus glowed a gentle cyan as atmospheric shields shimmered in the twilight. It was a jewel among the Empire's holdings, a city of education, heritage, tradition. The kind of world even the most battle-hardened Jovarian commander would never expect to fall under attack. That's why Reaper chose it. He stood silently inside a cloaked shuttle now parked in low orbit, watching the cultural capital below. Glowing temples, spiraling towers, open-air forums filled with scholars and civilian elites. There was no military presence. Not visibly. But there would be data cores, sacred artifacts, and most importantly, symbols. "They think we won't come here," said Navarro beside him, checking her gear. "They're wrong," Reaper said, eyes fixed on a gold-lit amphitheater far below. "They think we still believe in rules." Her helmet hissed as it sealed. "We're past rules." He didn't reply. He was thinking of the transmission intercepted yesterday. An alien broadcast of children singing a victory song written after Earth's fall. He remembered the chorus. He couldn't forget it. Smoke and ash, bones and dust, humans rust and rust and rust. Reaper had no formal rank anymore, but every op, every target, every phantom mission passed through him. He'd become a ghost story for both sides. The Jovarians had a dozen nicknames for him. The one whispered most often was the man who hunts suns. He clicked his visor into place and gave the silent command to descend. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to desecrate. On the ground, in the heart of Threxus, the Jovarian High Cultural Assembly gathered for a symposium. Scholars, artists, philosophers, they debated human psychology, as if that might explain the terror unraveling their empire. Their projection screens showed footage of Earth's retaliations. Entire outposts gone. Religious monuments vaporized. Shrines shattered. There was no pattern, no diplomacy, only message. One elder, standing on his hind limbs, addressed the crowd. They are no longer responding to strategy. They are responding to memory. We have misjudged the species not once, but twice. First, in their weakness. Now, in their rage. Someone in the audience, a young tactician, raised a trembling claw. They attack us like myths, like demons. They became what we said they were, the elder replied. And worse, they enjoyed the transformation. The lights dimmed. That wasn't planned. The crowd murmured, a dozen voices becoming a chorus of unease. Emergency lights failed to activate. Communications dropped. Then, across the main forum's obsidian wall, a message blinked in crude white text. History remembers the loudest screams. The wall exploded inward. Reaper walked through smoke, flanked by his black armor team. Pulse blades drawn. No orders given. No warnings offered. The assembly wasn't a battlefield. It was a stage. The humans didn't kill everyone. They only targeted those who spoke publicly of Earth's extinction. The rest they watched and recorded. By the time Jovarians scrambled to respond, Reaper's team had vanished back into the dark. The amphitheater burned behind them, carved with a single phrase etched in 3 languages. Memory never dies. In a command center half a system away, Northuck watched the live footage. His claws dug into the table's edge as reports streamed in faster than his staff could process. 37 simultaneous attacks. Different sectors. Different targets. All coordinated. All symbolic. They weren't trying to collapse military infrastructure anymore. That was phase 1. This was different. They're killing ideas, muttered one of the advisors. No, said Northuck. They're replacing them. He pulled up intercepted communications from within his own empire. Alien citizens whispering doubt, questioning the war, fearing shadows. Children drawing humans as horned beasts. Soldiers requesting leave for psychological anomalies. The fear wasn't tactical. It was cultural. Prepare for emergency relocation of cultural archives, Northuck barked. Evacuate high-identity sites. Hide the symbols. Sir, that would imply defeat. It implies survival, he snapped. He could no longer tell whether the shaking in his bones was instinct or revelation. At a black site on the edge of the Vendrax belt, General Kate Maxwell stood before a tactical globe hovering in midair. Holographic projections spun, alien fleet movements, planetary defense schemes, psychological response metrics. Every dot on the map blinked with potential. All were vulnerable. She touched a blue marker, Threxus, and it shifted to red. We're escalating, said Captain Vance, stepping forward. They're starting to censor their own media, erasing their victories. Some of their outer systems are even declaring neutrality. They started a war of extermination, Maxwell replied. They wanted to erase us. Now they understand how terrifying memory can be. Vance hesitated. We've begun getting inquiries from other species, smaller ones, fringe civilizations. They've seen what we've done. They're asking to parley. Maxwell tilted her head. Allies? Not exactly. They want to observe. Some are calling us apex beings. Others say we're unstable. They're both right, she murmured. She stepped back from the map and tapped a panel. It switched to Earth, an orbital view. Still smoldering. Still cracked. Still reborn in fire. I want the next target to be one they love. Something sacred. Vance nodded. There's a temple on Illyric 6, carved from their oldest moons. Pilgrimage site for 3,000 years. Make a dust, Maxwell said, and leave a signature. What kind? Her eyes didn't blink. Us. When the temple on Illyric 6 shattered beneath a kinetic barrage, the event echoed across the empire like a curse. It wasn't just a religious loss. It was the memory of their first empire, their origin story. The humans didn't occupy the site. They didn't steal relics. They didn't even leave bodies. They left something worse. A sculpture, carved in alien stone, using alien tools. It resembled no known deity, no sacred figure. It was a human woman, Maxwell, perfectly replicated, sitting on a throne made of cracked Jovarian armor, one hand resting on a helmet, the other holding a datapad. At the sculpture's base, 4 words. Never again means now. Northuck stood before the images of the sculpture as they transmitted to Central Command. He didn't speak. His generals waited. He finally whispered. They've made themselves into a religion. On board a stealth ship drifting beyond Jovarian sensor range, Reaper sat alone in a low-lit cargo bay. He cleaned his rifle with practiced movements, mind detached, thoughts drifting. Across from him, Navarro watched a data feed cycling intercepted messages from alien civilian channels. They're grieving, she said softly. They're grieving the idea of invincibility. Reaper grunted. Do you care? She asked. He stopped cleaning, looked up. His eyes were dark. I cared when they burned my daughter's school and said it was a valid target. He returned to his work. Navarro leaned back against the cold bulkhead. We become the monster they use to scare their kids. Good, he said. She watched him for a long moment. When does it end? When they stop calling us myths and start calling us memory, Reaper said. Then maybe we stop. A soft alert chimed. Next stop approved. They stood. No goodbyes. In the Imperial Palace, high above the core world of Cravia Prime, the surviving members of the Grand Council convened for what had once been an annual celebration of conquest. Now, it was an emergency session. The chamber had changed. No fanfare. No robes. Just grim stares and twitching limbs. Our outer colonies are crumbling, said one counselor. Our youth are refusing conscription. They wear human quotes on their clothing. They call themselves Deathworlders in training. We've lost the war of perception, said another. Northuck remained silent until they all finished. Then he stood. We thought we were bringing an inferior species to heel. Instead, we taught predators to walk upright. The others watched him. He walked to the center of the chamber. They learned from our violence, perfected it. Now they're teaching us humility. He let that hang. Perhaps it is time we learned to speak peace. The chamber recoiled. You would surrender, one barked. No, Northuck replied. I would survive. He stared upward at the stars beyond the chamber's dome. They are not hunting territory. They are hunting legacy. Back in the Earth black site, Maxwell read Northuck's transmission. It wasn't a surrender. Not yet. It was something else. A request for parley. A single message, carefully worded. We are beginning to understand. Are you still willing to talk? She stood in silence. Then she turned to Odin, her eyes narrowing. Begin preparations, she said. For war, the AI asked. No, she said. For an answer. But even as the message was processed, another transmission pinged Earth system. This one not from Jovarians. Another species. Unknown. Encrypted. Curious. Watching. Maxwell stared at the screen as Odin decrypted the first line. We've seen what you've become. We fear what comes next. May we speak? Maxwell folded her arms. You may, she said. But inside, something deep and dark was stirring. The humans had been shaped by genocide. Now they were shaping the galaxy. The shuttle touched down in silence, its form hidden beneath optical camouflage, hull absorbing light like a shadow pretending to be real. The landing zone was a temple plateau on a forgotten Jovarian archive moon, once holy, now abandoned. Its spires had long since turned to brittle bone, and the marble floor cracked under pressure like ancient glass. General Kate Maxwell stepped out first. Her boots made no sound. The air tasted of dust and memory. Behind her, Captain Vance followed, checking atmospheric readings that no longer mattered. There was no threat here. No welcoming party. Just one seat in the center of a cracked stone dais. A single figure waited in it. Northuck. He had arrived alone. No guards. No armor. No crown of rank. He looked older. Not in the way flesh ages, but in how belief collapses. His eyes, once sharp and dismissive, were now weighed down by something heavier than defeat. Maxwell stood across from him, just outside the stone ring, saying nothing. He rose slowly. You came, he said. Maxwell's voice was steady. You called. I wasn't sure you'd answer. You weren't sure we were people. He inclined his head. That was the mistake. Among many. A pause stretched between them, filled with wind and the subtle, unspoken tension of two civilizations staring at the hinge of history. I was there when the vote passed, Northuck said. The genocide of Earth. We told ourselves it was strategic, that your unpredictability made peace impossible. Maxwell's jaw tensed. You wanted control, so you removed the variable. And in doing so, he admitted, we created something worse. No, she said. You created something true. He studied her, expression unreadable. Do you believe we deserve extinction? I believe, she said slowly, that you deserve to remember what you did. Every sunrise should burn that guilt into your eyes. That's not extinction. That's balance. Northuck nodded, barely. Behind them, the sky split. From the horizon rose 3 human dreadships, silent and colossal, shaped not like fleets, but like monuments. Dark metal, pulsing veins of red reactor heat running down their flanks. They made no threats. They didn't have to. Their presence alone was a sermon. I came to propose cessation, Northuck said. Maxwell raised an eyebrow. Not surrender. No banners, he said. No kneeling. Just the end of blood. She stepped forward, into the circle. That depends on what happens when we stop, when you rebuild, when your people forget. He didn't answer. Because we're not here to win, Maxwell continued. We're here to end cycles. This wasn't war. It was revelation. Her hand moved slowly to her belt. A small orb sat there, pulsing. She tossed it into the air. The hologram activated, blooming above them. It displayed not a weapon, but a series of recordings. Alien laughter over dying human cities. Children's screams layered with tactical footage. Public executions. Songs. Then the screen changed. The same cities, but now quiet. Human operators guiding alien children to safety. Reconstructed buildings. Neutral planets receiving humanitarian aid. Earth soldiers handing out food in silence, guns still slung across their backs. You don't get to erase, Maxwell said, but you get to remember right. Northuck stared, silent. Your empire will disband its weaponized colonies, she said. Your propaganda networks will publish the truth, unedited. You'll offer reparations to survivor colonies. You'll train your young to understand what empathy costs. That's the cost of cessation. And if we don't agree, the hologram shifted again. Another world. A Jovarian forged planet, erased. No fleet. No team.